Hi everyone, my name is Sharon Platt. I am a science tutor for the Student Success Commons, and today I would like to go over the path of the cerebral spinal fluid in the brain. So if you remember on the overview of the brain, we talked about the lateral ventricles. There's one on this side, one on the other side, because of course this is half the brain. And then we have the third ventricle, which is right here, cerebral aqueduct, fourth ventricle, that kind of thing. All right, so let's take a look at those in the book. This is the lab book. Sorry. This is the lab book. This is the front view. So here's one lateral ventricle, here's the other. That there in the middle is the third ventricle, and then this down here is the fourth. Remember I said the fourth is bigger than it looks in the side model, because here's the side model. See, it looks very small there, but over here you can see it is actually quite large. And then in this side view, you can see these are quite large, these lateral ventricles. There's the two of them, one on either side there. Here's the third in the middle. And then down here we have the fourth. All right, so that's the basic view of the ventricles themselves. Now let's take a look at the cerebral spinal fluid and the path it takes. So this, I'll try to see if I can hold this where you can actually see it fairly well. So this red stuff here, that's the choroid plexus. That is what creates the cerebral spinal fluid. All right, and this here is the lateral ventricle. Remember, here it's only half again. And then there is a interventricular foramen. There's a little tiny hole on each side that takes the cerebral spinal fluid from the lateral ventricle into the third ventricle, which is right here. And then from the third ventricle, and that also has some choroid plexus, you see. So we've got choroid plexus here, and even down in the fourth ventricle. So it goes from the third ventricle into the cerebral aqueduct and down into the fourth ventricle. And then from there, be sure to take a look at it in your book because you'll see it a lot better. Some of it goes down the middle of the spinal cord, the central canal, and some of it goes around the outside of the spinal cord all the way down and back up so that it surrounds it. And then it goes up around here and up around here and up into the subdural or subarachnoid space. And then it goes to these arachnoid villi, which are little pockets there. And then it goes out into the dural venous space and gets reabsorbed into the bloodstream. So this is pretty much a one-way circuit. And this is why when something goes wrong in here, they need a shunt to drain the excess cerebral spinal fluid out, because it's constantly creating more in each of these ventricles. And then it has to go out into the bloodstream or somewhere. Otherwise you get too much pressure. You've got too much buildup of water in the brain and you get pressure. So let's go through this one more time here. I would highly recommend that you go through this multiple times on your own. Usually about the third time is when you start to get the hang of it, and then after that it's fairly easy to memorize it from there. So we start at the lateral ventricles where there's the choroid plexus, and it goes from there through an interventricular foramen, a little hole, from there into the third ventricle, which is here, through the cerebral aqueduct into the fourth ventricle, down through the central canal, around the spinal cord, and up around, it goes both ways, around the brain into the subarachnoid space, into these arachnoid villi, up into the dural venous space, and it's reabsorbed into the bloodstream there. All right, now let's go through it on the model, just so you have different perspectives to look at. All right, so we're going to start in the lateral ventricles. Remember, there's choroid plexus in there, and then if you look close, there's a little dot down in there. I don't know if you can see it. It's a little dot. That's your interventricular foramen. It's just a tiny hole going from the lateral ventricle into the third ventricle. Each side has one. So choroid plexus, lateral ventricle, interventricular foramen, third ventricle, cerebral aqueduct, fourth ventricle, down through the central canal and around the spinal cord, and then up and around the brain in the subarachnoid space to those little arachnoid villi, and up into the dural venous space, and it's reabsorbed into the bloodstream there. So that is the cerebral spinal fluid circulation.